Johanne, and I am a recovering codependent, an Al-Anon, and both of those things led me to believe that actually I'm addicted to adrenaline. If you want to learn more about that, stick around. You can even ask questions after. But I discovered, well, I guess to back it up, I was thinking about on Monday night, we started a big, really big LifeLab group, which is awesome. And Vicky asked a few of us to introduce ourselves and, what brought us to LifeLab. And I thought, wow, how long ago was LifeLab? Like, I feel like 8 years? Is that when, maybe? Is that a good, anyway, it's crazy to think that. Seven. Oh my gosh. I remember when John introduced us to it. We were his guinea pigs. And I remember Nana, his mom. I'm trying to remember if this is a part of it. Yeah, it is. I remember there's two things that stood out, and I'm not going to name one of them. But one of them, I remember Nana being in the front row, and John has to talk to his mom about sex, and it was a highlight for me, to say the least. But I'm not talking about sex today. Maybe I am, but I'm talking about trust. You can do the math. LifeLab really was, I think, a big jump start to my healing journey. And it led me to actually realize that a 12-step program, for some further work, some extra bonus material could be helpful to me. And so I landed myself about 2 years ago. 2 years ago? Just about 3 years ago? Just 2.5 years ago? I don't know, the beginning of 2020, right before the lockdown, I found myself in a coda room downtown, and I was there for, I don't know, a month, 2 months tops, and a lockdown all of a sudden erupts, and it was the best thing that could have happened to me. It was this, I don't know, maybe it's a divine appointment that happened, that God was like, here, people on earth, let's slow down a little bit. And it was really actually a blessing to me, even though there was some really hard stuff that happened. And so, even at the beginning of the pandemic, I was thinking of like, do I trust? And I'm still asking that question through and through. But, who do I trust? What can I trust? When everything is taken away from me, when my government tells me that I can't see people anymore, and I'm to wear masks, and churches are no longer allowed to meet, and, I can't go to Lone Star for fajitas anymore. Maybe I can get takeout, but takeout is, everyone I think would argue, takeout is not nearly as good as actually being in the store, and it's more expensive. And so who do I trust? What do I trust? Because yeah, it showed me how quickly what I think I can trust in this little fortress around me that I've created, that I think that I can control, is very fragile. It can tumble in a second. And so, I've been thinking lately too, when things are good, as things got better, maybe I can fall quickly into trusting in myself more, in a self-will kind of way. Maybe putting too much trust. I don't know if this is the right way to go, guys, but too much trust in people, is that a thing? I don't know. We're going to explore that. But I think when things are good, it's easier for me to not trust God, is what I'm trying to say. When things are going really crappy, or a terrible storm is swirling around me, that person decides they don't want to have a relationship with me anymore, and it's horrible, it hurts. Or maybe my marriage is challenging and I don't know. Or maybe I got kicked out of a church. I'm just naming a bunch of examples of things that have pretty much happened. And like, then who do I trust? Do I not trust that God is good? I think deep down, a lot of my actions really show that I don't. And so I kind of wanted to go into today two different parts of, Vicky kind of did this even last week too, but I wanted to do it further through the lens of trust, of what was life like before I was in recovery. What did trust look like in my life before recovery? And then as I entered into recovery and began to discover what my problem is and be able to apply a solution, um, what does trust look like then? And so I was thinking a lot about like the past. Um, I was thinking about my experience of trust. You know, where were there times where trust was broken? Um, I think for me, a couple of things would be like I grew up in a I mentioned at the beginning that I am an Al-Anon, meaning that I am a family member of those who struggle with addiction. And so I grew up in a home that there was addiction present, and it was really chaotic. And looking back, I realized like, oh, I think it really showed me like how much can I trust? How much can I really trust people? God, are you really good? I started to compare myself to other people around me, you know, as I got older and started to see like, well, you know, why does that family seem to have it all together? And man, those people really, you know, and not me. Like that's not my life. Why is my life like this, God? Um, you know, one of my earliest memories was my dad cheating on my mom. And again, this broken trust, I watched it unfold. I watched a really hard scenario. I watched marriage. Can I trust men? Can I trust marriage? Can I trust, you know, even maybe my own dad in that situation? Um, I think trust is really connected with love. And that, you know, do you really love me? And so I looked around in lots of different places to find love. You know, I looked for it from my family for sure, but then I started, you know, when needs don't get met in the way that we feel they need to, we as humans typically go other places. And so, a really big one for me was like I needed to surround myself with lots of people. And that was my gauge of whether things were good or not. If I had lots of friends and it felt like people loved me and I was important and, you know, I had these wonderful things going on, it was like my life was okay. When those things weren't happening, it wasn't. And so the other thing I was thinking of too was like um, boundaries. This is also something that's coming up with trust today, is that I really struggle with boundaries um, because I didn't really grow up with any. I remember like I got my first job as in a butcher, and my job, I was like, I think I was 18 because my parents said I didn't have to get a job until I like was a little bit older because they wanted me to be a kid and like figure skate and stuff. And so, but I reality hit, went to the butcher, got myself my first job, and my job for the majority of the time is to skewer cold refrigerated meat that was like souvlaki. So it's like it had been marinating for like a couple days maybe, and I'm putting chunks of meat on sticks for hours while standing. This is my job, okay? Whenever my kids are frustrating me, I actually think back to that day and I think, you know what? I could be putting meat on a stick right now. I think this is better. And so but all of that little side story is that I remember my mom saying to me when I was looking for a job of like when it says like what is your availability, you just say you're always available because you want that job so bad. You will do anything that it takes to get that job and to be the best employee. And I think that that's good in that, you know, I think she was really trying to show me like have a good work ethic and like don't be super choosy and like be a little more humble and not super entitled. But on the other end, I think it went so far as I kind of lived that way and I would say no. I would have or I would say yes to everything and everyone. And I had a really hard time saying no. Why? Because I didn't trust that if I didn't do things and if I was in a certain way, like life would go poorly for me. So I had to just always say yes. And so all of these things as I was growing up made me think about trusting God because I think really the relationships around us often we pin these characteristics and these experiences and through to God. And so, yeah, it caused me, I think, to think of God as someone that I have to, like, he would ask me to do things I don't want to do, and then I would absolutely have to do it because that's the way that he would accept me, or that's the way that I would stay employed, or that's the way that I would be loved, I guess. And so as I got older, I would into adulthood, I was thinking about, okay, what did trust look like then for me? And this is kind of just before I would believe that I started into recovery and even just started LifeLab. I mean, I had church experiences that there were a lot of broken promises. I experienced a lot of betrayal. I became really jaded because I saw hypocrisy and I saw that people's word they weren't good in the end, and that I couldn't trust them. And so less and less trust. And then, marriage. And I asked Josh is here without a video on. Josh, I asked him before I shared, like, I was like, what about marriage? Because I found myself married to someone who was an addict. And like the many times of relapsing and showing and telling me, being honest with me, at some point whenever that happened, and it was just devastating. So can I trust him? um and then I think the overall thing is asking God, am I able to be okay if all these things around me are okay? Can I trust you? Can I trust that you are going to take care of me? Can I trust that what your word, what your Bible, that this Bible, this scripture is true? Are you going to come through for me, or is it on me? And I think that that's a big way that I live my life. I find it in little ways, I find it in big ways, and I find that I will take it back very quickly. A discovery I had a few weeks ago is that I want to have God's plan as plan A, but I always have a backup plan. I always have a plan B. And is that really trust? If I'm creating a plan B, does it mean that I trust God's plan? I don't really think so. And one of the things, kind of as a spoiler alert at the end, I named this trust all or nothing. And I started to realize, oh, trust is either you trust or you don't trust. It doesn't really seem like there's much of an in between. But I'll get more to that. And so, like, in all of these, we'll call them tragedies or difficulties or betrayals or rejections or problems in my life, little by little, my trust was eroded in people, in myself, in institutions, and can all build a case against God. And if I really truly trust him, because I believe, perhaps I believe that he did these things. Perhaps I believe that he allowed these things to happen, or he was almost okay with it happening, perhaps, which I don't think is true, but in the moment it felt that way. That maybe he let this help happen, and so he gave me the short end of the stick. So how do I trust God? So I was talking to a friend, and I was telling her about my questions about trust, and she said to me, she's like, it's a noun and a verb to trust. Actually, I discovered, and the noun is, this is the definition that I found on the internet. It is a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. So again, as a noun, trust is the firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. And trust also is a verb, and it is to believe in the reliability, the truth, the ability, or strength of. So it kind of, can work both ways. And so in the big book, on page 68, I'll just open that up here, because I had to do some searching, guys. Talk to me about trust, because this is what I'm learning. So here we are. Big book, page 68, starting paragraph 1, and I'll read from there. And I'm going to start at self-reliance. So it says, self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so, for we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We must trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role He assigns. Just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us and humbly rely on Him, does He enable us to match calamity with serenity. We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men or women of faith have courage. They trust in their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear. And so I want to transition now into recovery and what does trust look like? Because it was very easy for me to come up with, well, I know where I've been distrusting of the past. That's super obvious. And that's something that creeps up very easily if I let it, if I'm not connecting with God. And so the thought that I had was that kind of in what's been going on with me lately, there's been a lot going on personally. And I realized that in my worrying, in my anxiety, in my speculation, which is not helpful and creates a lot of chaos for me, either I'm going to trust God or I'm not going to trust God. And I realized, even in reading this text, I'm going to have faith in Him because I've trusted me and I've trusted others to fulfill me or run the show, but it's failed me over and over again. I've been burnt far too many times. So what if God is the answer? I've been told that He is. The church has told me that He is. I know the right answer, but am I living the right answer? And so, I think that we all come to different points in our life and in recovery as we're living recovery. We come to these points of wanting to, I guess, just surrender our own way of figuring things out and making plans. And the simple thing is that we just have to turn and ask God to give us a new life, to just have faith. And I know it sounds just have, but it is a choice. I was reading a book lately, and it talks about just the tangled web of our minds or what they can become. And she's like, just so you know, and it really has stuck with me. She's like, every single thought we can take captive and we have a choice. And she's like, that's the thought. And I've been thinking that lately. As soon as I start to spin, or I start to worry, or I start to speculate, or I freak out, God has been good and has placed this thought in my mind of, you have a choice right now. You have a choice. Either you're going to trust me or you're not going to trust me. What do you want to do? I have a choice. And so I've started, again, along this path of, okay, God, I trust you. I trust you. It's got to start somewhere. And there's this Pause app. If anyone has been a part of it, highly recommend it. You'll find more about it after if you want to. But I knew about this concept of, we would call it detaching with love, is what I learned in my 12-step recovery. But the Pause app, I love it. It even says it's benevolent attachment. And so it's the practice of releasing everyone and everything to God. It's the letting go that I so desperately need and could not do on my own, really, truly. And trusting God with everything, trusting God with everyone. And I think that one of the biggest things that has gotten in the way of me actually trusting God is me. It's been me being like, well, but what if He's not really good? What if you're not going to like the way that He does things? What if His way actually sucks and your way, Joanne, is better? But again, that's my messed up thinking. And I guess it's the question of how did that work out for me? And it's led me to the same place over and over again. It's led me to the pattern of creating chaos in some way, and then fixing and controlling that chaos, and then creating more chaos, and then fixing and controlling that chaos. And it's terrible. I don't want to do that. And I've tasted in recovery the break from that. I've tasted the peace. I've tasted the freedom. And so I think once you taste it, you're like, I I know what can be, and that's what I'm chasing after. That's why I connect with God every single day. That's why I've got to connect with God every day. And so this benevolent attachment, this trusting God, this choice is such a blessing. And I love how in the app at some point they were in during one of the meditations, the guy responsible for it, he was saying, even if I do this twice a day, imagine the sigh of relief that my soul will feel, that experience that I'll have of just even for 5 minutes, just saying to God, I give you everyone and everything. I trust you with my life. I trust you with my program of recovery. I trust you with this situation and this thing. Imagine just how good that would be for my soul, for my spirit, for my body, if I just simply did that for 5 minutes a day. And I think the more that we do that, that's been my experience, the more that I've done that, the more my soul craves it and recognizes, yeah, like this is what I was meant for. I was meant to trust God. And so, yeah, I have come to believe in, and I really actually absolutely realize I believe that I need to trust God with everyone and everything. I'm convinced. That's why I'm talking about this right now. Because, yeah, I guess what's the alternative? The alternative is the old way of life. And so my last point I want to make is that think about the trust fall. Did anyone ever go to like summer camp, or like anyone go to high school maybe? When you have to like fall back and all these people have to catch you. It's like a team building exercise. Yes. I hate those. Like I think it's really hard. I don't know if anyone's really good at doing that, of just falling back, no problem. But like, I struggle with that of, will they actually catch me? And imagine if they didn't catch me, like I could get a concussion. I could break something, I'm sure. But I was thinking about this trust fall, and that you actually can't, like, to successfully do a trust fall, you can't like kind of do it. You can't 75% do it. You can't even really 99% do it. To successfully do this trust fall, you have to be 100% in. You just got to fall back and believe that you're going to be caught. And so I believe it is with God, that the big book talks about this. Maybe I'll even read that. It's worth it since I have a couple minutes. On page 58 and 59, it talks about half measures availing us nothing. And so, where should I start? Some of us. Okay, we'll do this part, just the end here of 58. It says, at some, we thought we could find an easier or softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. This is talking about inventories. And the program of recovery. Some of us have tried to hold onto our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, we deal with codependency, we deal with food addiction, we deal with pornography addiction, we deal with overspending, all of the things. We deal with these things. They're cunning, they're baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. That word complete abandon, a friend of mine brought that up recently. And I was like, oh yeah, that's trust. Trusting is actually you have to trust with complete abandon. The Bible, the good book, asks the same thing in Matthew 10:39. It says, whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. And so I guess I just leave us with this of like, can I trust God who asks me to abandon my life completely and get a whole new one? Can I trust him to be able to lose my life, let go of everything, everything that I consider life to be, so that I can find life? And yeah, so for me, this is, I guess, maybe a declaration of, I trust God. I choose to trust. I choose to have faith, to turn my life and will over to his care, because it works. It really, really works. If you're new here, it works. If you're old here, it works. And I am really excited to be on this adventure of trusting God. It feels refreshing. It is refreshing. It's this sigh of relief and it's freedom. And I think trusting for God is really what I've been looking for all along. That's all I got. Thanks for letting me share, guys.